A new poll shows 60% disapproval of Trump, and this is just ahead of his State of the Union address, which is tomorrow.
Well, this won't exactly get Trump's confidence soaring ahead of the State of the Union. It seems like it's already a disaster, and he hasn't even given it yet. Trump heads into the 2026 State of the Union address under one of the most challenging political environments of his presidency. Both of them, I would say. And long before he utters his first line, he's already up against it. And don't take my word for it. Just listen to hosts on Fox News, of all places.
Tariffs. Is it a losing proposition for Trump? I'm asking you a political question, I guess, but what do you think? Is this what's causing the disapproval?
It is a losing proposition. My goodness, the Supreme Court gave Trump an exit ramp to get away from tariffs, to get away from his obsession with tariffs as being a cure-all for what ails the U.S. economy. He didn't take advantage of it. When people voted him into office, they wanted a containment of price inflation, less price inflation. And unfortunately, there is no way in the world that the imposition of tariffs helps Trump and the Republican Party help to make America affordable again.
There was a study by a Federal Reserve economist and group, I think, that said, look, 90% of the tariffs have been passed on to American consumers and businesses. Now, Kevin Hassett, the president's chief economic advisor, says that's a faulty study. Ignore it. What do you say? Were the tariffs passed on to consumers?
The prices of tradable goods, of tangible goods for the most part, are higher than otherwise because of tariffs. You know, right now we have goods price inflation at about 1.7%. Some might say, well, that's tolerable. But if we go back to Trump's first term in office, prior to COVID, goods price inflation didn't exist. I think we had goods price deflation for the most part. The prices of manufactured goods, tradable goods, were generally flat to somewhat lower. And that's what I think voters expected when they put Trump back in office, but that's not what they're seeing.
In the days leading up to the address, there have been major developments that have undercut the traditional purpose of the speech, right? Which is to showcase leadership, consolidate support, and offer some form of forward-looking agenda. But instead, Trump's political standing is defined not by strength, but by tumbling approval, legal setbacks on his precious tariff policy, and broad public discontent that has made the speech as much about damage control as political projection. I mean, let's start with the polling, right? Because, man, I hope the dude has some Aquaman gills, because he is underwater on a hell of a lot. A Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll conducted just a couple days before the State of the Union found that Trump's approval is sitting at around 39%, with 60% of Americans disapproving of his performance. That's a level of negative sentiment that he's not seen since the days after the insurrection. Even within his own party, enthusiasm is softening, right? With fewer Republicans saying they, quote, strongly approve of his performance than at earlier points in his term. And this is where it gets really interesting, right? Among independents, his approval falls to just 26%. It was 43% last February. No matter how much he lies about fake news or fake polls, these are the numbers, and he can't get away from it.
And I had to go through, and I still do, fake stories, fake polls. I had polls for the election that showed I was going to get swamped, and I won in a landslide. They were fake polls because polls are tough. You know, when you get a fake poll, I get them today. I saw one today that I'm at 40%. 40%. I'm not at 40%. I'm at much higher than that. I mean, I'd love to run against anybody. The real polls say you kill everybody. It wouldn't even be close. But you go through the fake polls, you go through the fake stories.
But talk about what is driving this drop for the president.
What is driving this drop? I said record was the name of the game when it came to this segment, right? Talking about the lowest Trump has ever been going into the State of the Union, the lowest that any president has been this century going into a State of the Union at this point in their presidency. It is also the weakest that Donald Trump has ever been with independents. Look at this drop. We've been talking about it the past few months. At this point, a year ago, Donald Trump was at minus 13 points. Look at this. Minus 47 points among independents, the lowest Donald Trump has ever been in either of his two terms as president with independents. That is driving these numbers. When you're 47 points underwater with independents, that's the name of the game. You can't be above water overall. And that's why Donald Trump is near record lows overall and the lowest he's ever been going into a State of the Union address.
Quite a message on the eve of this big moment. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
John?
Those numbers with independents just eye-popping there. All right,
And it goes deeper than polling, right? When you look at just days before the address, the U.S. Supreme Court delivered a major rebuke of Trump's signature tariff strategy by striking down his use of emergency powers to impose sweeping global tariffs. This ruling exposed a core pillar of his economic policy as largely untenable and publicly rebuked by a conservative-leaning court that he stacked.
I think the American people don't quite understand that only Congress has the right to impose tariffs. That's why it's illegal. The president does not have the right to do that. And I also think they don't quite understand that most of those costs, most of those tariffs get passed on to the consumer. So Americans are actually paying for the tariffs. The businesses aren't going to pay the money. They're going to pass that cost right down to us. So we end up paying the money through the tariff process. That's all I wanted to say.
So, Nobi, does it make sense for this tariff money that we've collected to just cut the check to individual American families?
Well, I think if the Americans have paid the money, it makes sense to give the money back.
And there's going to be the midterms. I've never seen so many Canadians all cheering on the Democrats. And I think there's 33 Senate seats up for grabs. 20 of them are Republican. But we saw what happened in Congress. We saw what happened in the Supreme Court. The walls are closing in, I believe, on President Trump right now, and he's feeling the pressure. So a lot of these jobs are border states that are being affected, and he needs those seats. So if it continues on, people are going to be unemployed, and which will affect the midterms.
And of course, Trump's response, lashing out at the justices and pledging alternate tariff actions, that may satisfy supporters who get high off of snake oil, but it underscores a broader narrative problem here. Instead of Trump getting up there and boasting about wins like he likes to do, and probably still will despite there being none, it seems like he's forced to defend defeats in front of the world at the State of the Union address.
And then I have to listen to the fake news talking about affordability. Affordability. Do you notice what word have you not heard over the last 2 weeks? Affordability. Because I've won affordability. I had to go out and talk about it.
Listen at this. We've got a new report, and it shows the number of U.S. farms went down last year. Actually, give me the numbers.
Well, those stats are shocking, Stu. The number of U.S. farms shrank by 15,000 in 2025. Yes, it brings the total to 1.865 million, still a lot, but farmland is continuing to face pressure from economic factors such as urbanization and low or basically negative returns per acre. You're losing money. According to the American Farm Bureau, it is part of a long-lasting decline. We've seen it year after year, while farm bankruptcies, by the way, are on the rise. The largest decline at the state level was Texas. No surprise, it's lost 2,000 farm operations, while no state saw an increase in farms at all. Last year, Illinois, for example, lost 400, Iowa and Indiana 500, Minnesota a whopping 1,300. The numbers show that the numbers of farms decreased in every economic category except for farms that make $1 million or more in sales each year, which actually saw a minor increase of 50 farms. But any way you look at it or try to paint it, it's a pretty grim picture, Stu.
Trump's challenges extend beyond public opinion. And just to make matters worse, he may well be giving that speech to half the room, as numerous Democratic lawmakers have opted to skip Trump's address in favor of none other than the MeidasTouch Network's People's State of the Union alongside Move On Civic Action. The likes of Senator Adam Schiff is joining a growing group of Democrats who plan to boycott President Trump's State of the Union address in favor of what will be a highly watched alternative event.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.